One thing I should have mentioned is that you don't have to apply the glue like I just did to this dragonfly and apply it tediously to each and every piece. All you need to do is a light swipe with your glue stick and go ahead and stick down your dies or your die cuts or punches. That's all. Sorry about that. Just a little bit of glue. Oh, I don't know if I want that much. Alright. I don't know. Oh, I think I like that better. Just a little bit. That's all. Like I said, just make sure you don't have big gobs of glue. And I'm going to make sure that this bird is only over that crease. Just a little bit of him. There. Once those are glued down, you simply need to trim off the excess. Now, if I felt like it, I would get out a craft knife and my cutting mat and go ahead and trim very neatly, but I'm just going to use my scissors. Chop. That works. Probably not good for my scissors to be chopping into wood. Just trim that off. There we go. And little birdie. So here we have our frame with all of the die cuts or punches cut out, glued down, and the edges of the dies have been cut off of the edge of the frame. The next step is to apply our foil tape to the frame. And the best way to do that is to start with this long edge, stand the frame up on your work surface. Hopefully you have a nice flat surface so the frame will stand up. Take your foil tape, and I went ahead and started this. It's actually usually pretty easy. If it gives you trouble, just use a pin to start it. And peel this apart slowly, carefully. I'm going to get my index finger and my pinky finger kind of spreading these apart. Don't pull it apart too fast so that it springs back and curls up on itself. If it does that, just go ahead and wad the thing up in a ball, throw it away, and cut out another one, because this stuff is sticky, and you will not get it apart. So the next thing, I'm going to use my one hand to hold the frame, and the other hand to line up one edge. I remember that this was just a little long when I cut it, so I'm going to not have it at the very edge, and line it up here. Smooth it down. Oh, perfect. Next, you can lay your frame back down and just smooth this edge. Don't worry if it isn't perfectly smooth or even if you have some lumps and bubbles. Actually, I have a section on this frame. I don't know if you can see how lumpy and kind of warbly that looks, but it almost just adds to the frame once you add the alcohol ink. It just looks like it's supposed to be like that. So add the front edge and then just go ahead and wrap it. At this point you may need to bend this tab out of the way and then just wrap that around the back. So there's one. Next we'll take another one and repeat. Again, peel this off carefully. See how I use my pinky to make sure that doesn't go springing back. It doesn't want to stand, that's okay. Line this up. Don't worry about wrinkles. The only time I might get a little worried is if my tape was shorter than my edges, because then I'd have wooden parts showing through, and I don't know that that would be very attractive. Like this is right on the edge here, but I know I've cut this part a little long, so that'll be fine. Again, wrap it around inside. Bend back the tab. And so on. So 2 more. Go ahead and finish wrapping your frame, and then I'll be back and we'll get on to some of the really cool parts. So here we are back again. I've already added all of the foil tape to the 4 edges of my frame, and I don't know if you can see it down here, but I actually did have an area where there was some of the wood showing through. And what I did, I just didn't freak out, but cut a very skinny strip of the foil tape and put that over the gap, and I don't think you're ever going to notice it once the frame is done. The next part is a lot of fun. It's what I think of as the magic, and that's when you take a rubber brayer and simply start rolling. So you just keep rolling with your brayer, and suddenly all that detail just pops through. The parts that are supposed to be smooth, smooth out. And the parts that are supposed to be raised, raise up. Make sure you roll in all different directions. Isn't that cool? It just pops out and suddenly you start seeing the details. Now if you want it to be have even stronger detail, you can use a paper stump and just start to go in. I searched and searched for some other tool that I could use, something around the house besides my finger, which actually worked pretty well. But other than that, I couldn't find anything that didn't scratch up the foil or even rip it outright. A paper stump is something you can pick up in the art department of your craft store for a couple dollars. So you can see how much detail I'm getting, how much deeper I'm going on all the edges. You can even use the stump to smooth out areas that are wrinkly. Don't get obsessed by these though, because like I mentioned before, we're going to be going over this with alcohol ink, which has a modelly, blotchy kind of look on its own, and you're not going to notice what you might think of now as imperfections in the foil. It's supposed to have an imperfect look. Just keep telling yourself that. It's supposed to have a random modeled look. So there we go, we kind of get that detail in there. But if you don't have a paper stump, or you're not patient enough to wait till you can go out to the art store to get one, you really can actually get quite a bit of the detail to come out just by using your finger. I discovered this before I went and purchased a paper stump, but I recommend getting one of these. It's quite useful. And even just smoothing down that big old wrinkle, see that? Just kind of buffs out. So there. I'd say that's pretty good. I'm pleased with it. Now the next part is adding our alcohol inks. Adirondack makes a line of alcohol inks that are just fantastic. They have some of the most wonderful colors, bright colors, they have earth tones, they have brights. Let's see, in this frame, well actually I made a little chart of the colors that I have, so I'll show you that. These are just P-Touch labels, and the ones that don't have colors next to them are colors that I don't own yet, but I know that they're in the line and I may buy them someday. But I just put a dab of each color because alcohol ink loves non-porous surfaces, so the P-Touch labels are perfect. So for this frame, I'm pretty sure I used some raisin, some cranberry. I think there might have been a little wild plum in there. Quite possibly some espresso or terracotta. There's a brown in there. Maybe it's a ginger. There's definitely a little bit of a brown in there, which kind of tones it down a bit. In this frame, I wanted a deep green. I started out with bottle and meadow and pesto and ended up with like a Kelly green. It was just much too bright. So I went back in and added some stream and some espresso, and you can see these brown areas that are really toned down. So this next frame I'm going to do in blues. You can use anything that you have for an applicator, but really the best tool is some felt. And Ranger makes this wonderful little handle, but you can just buy an old stamp. In the first video that Tim Holtz made demonstrating this technique, he had an old stamp with a handle like this that he had bought somewhere, taken off the stamp, stapled on the rough part of a piece of Velcro, and cut some felt. That's it. And one nice thing about these bottles of ink is that you can actually leave the caps off because it's alcohol ink, so it's not water-based, so it's not going to evaporate. You can see that I've punched white dots and colored them with the colors to help me, but some of them have fallen off. But I'll try to keep them with their corresponding color. And all you want to do, let's see, what do I have here? I have a little bit of eggplant, so a little purple, because I'm kind of a fan of purple. This is sailboat blue, which is a nice bright blue. Some of that. And just about what Tim recommends, actually, a 2-second squeeze of each color. That was, I think that was stream. Yes. And this is denim. And we'll see what we get. And you just start dabbing it. Oh, that's beautiful. You just start dabbing. Turn and twist the applicator so you don't end up with so much of a pattern, since all the dots are in the same place on the felt. Kind of turn and twist it. Now you may not be thrilled with the way it looks when you first go over it. You may like that. When you first put them on, you usually get a very smooth look. I love these colors. Beautiful. But then, alright, so this is dried. This stuff dries in seconds. So if we go back over it again, suddenly we end up with a lot more model-y look, which is more of what I'm going for in this frame, is that mottled look rather than smooth. But you can do whatever suits your fancy. I'm kind of pleased with it just like that. And then, of course, you want to pick it up and do the edges. And the thing is, you can go over this as many times as you want. And you can add other colors. I could, if this was too bright blue for me, it is kind of an electric blue, isn't it? I could add some brown. I could add reds. I could go in and add any colors I want. I think I'm going to actually go back in with a little more denim and a little more stream. So kind of, it needs a little more dark and maybe a little more green. I'm going to set that in front of its cap so it goes back with the right cap. There we go, a little darker. And if you want to lighten it, you can add in alcohol blending solution, but I really don't want to lighten it. I want to cover up. Now your fingers are going to get inky, especially when you pick it up to do the sides. Make sure you get in here. Get in those edges. Let's see. Here we go. I won't do all of this for you. You don't want to be watching me dab away, but isn't that beautiful? Now, see how smooth it is now with the first application. Go back again. And suddenly it starts to separate. You could also use those gold, silver mixatives that you could add in here. I'm actually quite pleased with this as it is.